6 months ago, an SMP was born. An SMP linked with deep ties to the original Murder Island that I first uploaded. The aim of the game was to create history and lore and try and make a world that feels alive. And well, this deep into it, I think we've achieved that. All thanks to us, the players, and the admins for making incredible rules. Things you need to know if you're just tuned into this for the first time. This is hardcore, but there are special rules. There's one way of coming back to life, and that's the Staff of the Undead that is held by Emil. He's the most evil player on the server. Has been since the start. I'm ready to rest, and I'm happy with the history that I've created, and I want to step aside and let other players create history on this amazing server. But before that, I need to finish my own story. It's time to end Emil, or die trying, no matter what the cost. Our journey begins outside Emil's castle, and no, we're not heading straight into war because the war hasn't officially begun yet. But it will, because we're gonna make it happen. See, the server's split into two teams currently right now. Two ideas. On one side, one team, which is the red team, want to keep control. They want the few to stay in control. Where on our side, the blue team, we want freedom. We want everyone to have a fighting chance to do what they want and not to be controlled. This is some new politics that's popped up on the server. And this was a deciding factor that we all knew war was coming. And you had to pick a side. Are you on the blue side or are you on the red side? And obviously, I'm on the blue side. But red team had invited us here to Emil's castle. Not only had Emil finished this huge castle finally, after many 100 days. And I think he wanted to show this off because Barry had done an amazing job at this. But red team were looking for something that everyone was looking for. The one thing that will change the tide of war. And red team were looking for the smithing table. This is used to make netherite, and there's only one of these in the world, and it's been placed down by the admins, and still no one has found it. Everyone believes that it's still hidden in the nether. And in the last 100 days, the nether finally was released to all of us. There's only one nether portal in the world, and there was a great nether game where all nations put forward players to enter the nether, and they were all competing amongst each other to find the soul knife. This was the god weapon that controlled the nether portal. It was essentially a key. If you own this weapon, you can open and close the only nether portal in the world. You literally own the nether. That means you own all the ancient debris, which means you can craft all the netherite you want. After many days of fighting for survival, the soul knife was finally found and the nether portal opened, but this erupted a huge war. All the brutal chaos that was going down in the nether was now spilling out into the overworld. I managed to barely escape with my life, but in the process, I left my nation, Storm's Landing, because they were one of the culprits who were causing this tension. They were slaughtering innocent people, which they didn't need to do. They were in the nether and trapped. But as I was getting far away from the scene as possible when the nether portal opened, I managed to find Mikey's team alongside with Sorrow, and they were the team that had found the soul knife. But obviously they were keeping it secret. But since I was nationless, Sorrow invited me in with open arms, and I joined them and helped them escort the soul knife back to Mikey's nation, where it should belong. But as we were trying to avoid the chaos that was on the shore, there was just brutality everywhere. Nations that were once great allies were now fighting each other because accidental deaths had happened, where Soccer had accidentally killed one of Gnome's team. But all in this chaos, I witnessed one thing, and that was one player staying extremely calm, and that was Emil's team, who were sitting on a ship waiting to swoop in and grab control of the nether portal. That's right, they technically didn't need to have the soul knife to be able to own the nether. If they built a castle around it, technically the rules would protect them. As long as the portal's open, which it was, they could stop anyone who owns a soul knife getting access to close it. But players were fighting all along the shores. Groups of players were dying, and all I could see was Emil's army of the undead getting bigger. Every time a player dies, they go to the dark side essentially. And as we came around the corner, this is when we knew things were really at melting point. Soccer's team and Gnome's team were having a fight, and it was a big scrap because Soccer had accidentally killed one of Gnome's members. And their fight was pushing across to us and following us and spilling into Mikey's land, where we were just trying to get back to Mikey's to protect the soul knife. We didn't want anyone knowing that we had it. It had to be a secret. And when we got to Mikey's castle, we were told that Mikey and JD Kelly made a deal. JD Kelly was a neutral nation that lived right next to Mikey, and they made a deal that if they get the soul knife, he would have it, because he wants to control the Nether, and I see no issue with that. A neutral nation controlling the Nether is the best option that we could have for the whole entire server. So as he went down to break up the fight between Sucker and Gnome on his land, me and Sorrow continued to quest to deliver the soul knife to JD Kelly's. And finally, when JD Kelly logged online, he was wise, and he knew that even though he's neutral, people will still try to mess with him. So he asked Sorrow if he would take the soul knife and lock it away in his land, as Sorrow has a vault that no one knows about. Jamie knows that if Emil owns a nether portal now, the soul knife is practically useless, and hiding the soul knife is the best option for all of us now. We were shoved up the stairs, and there he was. The guy that we're talking about. The guy that this episode is dedicated towards. EMILROOS, standing on his throne, with the staff of the undead out. I don't know what's bigger, Emil's ego or his throne. We were told to take a seat and to wait. Soccer's team then came in. And as you can see, Soccer now has the Stormslander. He'd finally got it back because Emil had given it to him. I still don't fully understand why Soccer's on Emil's side, but Soccer loves his power, and he wants to keep it. And I feel like our side represents taking that away from him. And I believe the Storm's Landing was given back to Soccer as a way of keeping him on that side. It took a while before talking began, because Emil had choreographed this to perfection, and I'm not sure if it was meant to intimidate us or not. And after this little act was done, it was now time to finally get down to business. But with Emil owning the Nether, that also meant he now found the only brewing stand on the map. That was in the Nether Lost, and his team had found it. Emil wants to trade with the world now. Whoever has the smithing table should reveal. But none of us here have it. It hasn't been found yet. And it probably lies within the Nether, we said. And that's when Emil asked about the Hades crystal. Who had that? And that was, of course, me. I didn't own it. It was technically Jack. He won it. But Jack did give it to me. And besides, I haven't seen Jack in ages, since he disappeared in the Nether when he was about to fall to his fiery doom. Rainbow told me that he returned back to the jungle after that event. And Forrest and Jack led a great conquest and took over the whole entire jungle, kicking out Grim and all of Emil's members that were once there. And I was willing to trade that Hades crystal for something that Emil had on his back. And that was the Thalia's sword. See, I was missing that, because I sacrificed it to save Sikko's life when we were in the Nether. I gave it to him to bring to Wilboat's team, so that he could hopefully survive if this was the end of my journey. But luckily, we managed to escape the Nether. I just didn't escape with my sword. From what I'm aware, there's only 2 of these on the map, and Emil's holding one and someone else has another. My one. And I don't know if I'll ever see it again. So with an opportunity to get my weapon back. These Thalia swords are extremely rare and only come from villagers. So I was desperate. I wanted my weapon back. So I made the trade with Emil. The Hades crystal for the Thalias. And I'm not gonna lie, it felt amazing to have this weapon back that I've had since the start of my journey. And this is when our worst fear came to light. Herb had revealed that he was in possession of the soul knife, and as you know, we hid the soul knife inside a vault, and a few days ago, that vault was broken into. And not a word was said on the server, and no one came forward that they did it. And now here's Herb with the soul knife. He's the one who broke into our vault. And what could we do about it? Herb wanted to help Emil's cause. And to safeguard the nether portal from any threats. And obviously with the rules being the rules, only one god weapon can be held at a time on one player. So Emil has no other choice but to let Herb do this. And to hold the soul knife. Someone on our side had given him the information of where we vaulted it. That doesn't even belong to us. That is Jamie's property. And I'm sorry, I've been hiding something from you guys, but now it's time to declare it and to let everyone know. But a few days ago, I found myself my own god weapon finally, and I'm going to make my own land, but I've learned my lesson. I made a village before, and it got burnt down. And peace cannot come until this player right now, EMILROOS, is underground, deep, and locked away. So with my god weapon, I declared war on EMILROOS. Not the red team, but I'm sure they're going to declare war on us and fight alongside Emil. And I asked Soccer if he truly wanted to be on this side because the beef is not with him. But Soccer had chosen his side and he was staying there. And he was willing to go to war. It was now time to go. War had been declared, but that doesn't mean we have to fight today. We fight when we're both ready to. But as we tried to exit, the way out was blocked. A drawbridge has been drawn, and tensions were now high. But Sorrow pulled the drawbridge over from the other side using an ender pearl. And we were quickly shoved out of the castle. It was back to the ship as quick as we could. While filling in the rest of the crew, Mikey was informed that his base was under attack. Not by Emil, but by Jasio and his bandits, who from what I know are definitely working with Emil. So without hesitation, we all started heading down to the south, charging towards Mikey's, with Mikey leading the way. As the horde of players got over the hill, everything looked fine at first. You could see fighting going on in the distance, but the main thing was Mikey's castle looked intact. A little bit of damage. That was all. But as we got closer, it became more clear. This was calculated. And it was destructive. Jasio's bandits had wiped out Mikey's castle. And here Jasio was, with my Thalia's sword. If I knew I was going to get handed one on a silver platter like this, I wouldn't have traded the Hades crystal. But having two on our team wouldn't be a bad idea. Jasio being a bandit means that the rules of war don't really apply to him. That weapon gives him some special rules, like being able to do some surprise attacks. Other nations have to give enemies 30 minutes prior or an hour's prior or the next day prior notice that they're going to be attacked. Jasio had a whole entire party on him. A horde of players. There was no way he was going to get out of this alive. Unless Emil was coming down to save him. But Emil doesn't have the best track record for this. Jasio was doing his best to defend himself. And I wanted to give him one chance to get captured. So I dragged him into a Discord call. I asked Jasio, do you want to die? And he said no. Being a bandit, he's too selfish to die. And he also knows our team. He knows he can do stupid attacks like this. And we'll capture him and he won't have to die. Because that's what we stand for. We'll never slaughter people for no reason. We'll always try and conserve life. Jasio knows if he gets captured, someone will come to save him. A few members were chasing down the rest of the bandits, and we used Jasio as leverage to get the bandits to come here, otherwise we'll kill their leader. My Thalia's sword was handed back to me, dropped by Jasio. I now had two in my possession. The bandits that survived the attack were now here, all rounded up. And it was time to capture them. Or that's what Jasio thought. Jasio chose a side. Should look at the red flag that the enemy have there, on their shield. This is the end of the line for Jasio's bandits. Capturing you will be a great idea, because obviously then we'll have less people manning the old Nether fortress, which would be valuable to take right now. So, look, we're going to capture you. But before that, we're going to kill every single one of you.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I like this. Oh, I love this.
I knew it.
Okay. No, you know, whatever
I've been
works.
this for so long.
They chose a side, and we're at war. And desperate times call for desperate measures. It's not something we want to do, but if we want to win this war, we're going to have to be like our enemies a little. Maybe past me would have actually captured them. But I've learned my lesson now. You can't change the people. This was only a few hours into the war, and this much destruction had already taken place. It's almost making me think, what's going to come from this? Will we even have a world if we even win? All I know for certain is all the players here are willing to die for this cause. After those crazy events, it was easy to get lost. We needed to stay focused because a war was officially coming soon. The war planning had been agreed, and the rules of war were simple. A war channel was put on the Discord, and if you receive a ping, that means an attack was coming your way, and you had 30 minutes to get ready. All players had to log on and defend, and had to guess what castle they might be attacking. And if we ping them, the same for them. They'll have to guess what castle we're attacking. That was it. We all knew that it was about to be taking out castles, because if you want to control the world and defeat your enemies, they need to have no more homes, no strongholds they can go back to. Then, their power is truly gone. So, we were building a stronghold on Sorrow's Island, right across from Grimm's Nation. But as the team were building, and I was overseeing it, I couldn't help but notice Sikko running away, going off somewhere. As you know, Sikko just recently joined our side. I didn't think much of it, but I was curious. So I tried to follow him without him spotting me. He didn't need to go off to get supplies because all the supplies were already there. He was in a boat, and he sailed off. Now I was trying to be rational. I was thinking maybe he's going back to Sorrow's main island to maybe retrieve something. So I went back to the village to see. But he was nowhere to be seen at all. I even asked Crumpet who was here. He's on guard. He never saw Sikko enter the village. So where had Sikko gone? I think I know. The next day, the fortress was done, and it was time to inspect. This was a really interesting build because all the people from different nations had built this. They'd all worked together with resources. And the structure was exactly what we asked for. Just something simple that can sound the alarm if Emil is deciding to attack. Because how the rules of war work is that the enemies have to attack the closest thing in order. Gain ground almost, and the same has to go for us. It's just the way it needs to work, otherwise it's going to get too confusing. But Emil's base, Emil's castle, Emil's area is interesting because there's two fronts he can attack from. He can go for Gnome's Nation first, or he can come for Sorrow's. It's that simple. Gnome's Nation already has a fortress in it. That's not its capital city. If we're going to attack a nation, you have to take down all the fortresses that lie inside the land before you can take on the capital city. It's just the rules we made that make it more interesting. Back to the castle though. IGN, Nick and others were showing me all of it. And inside, they even had a prison. A cell. Which was perfect. I asked Sikko to go inside and see how it works. He went in, and I told him to stay there. Just as he threw the button back out to me, because there was a button on the inside. I interrogated Sikko. And I asked, where did he go yesterday? And to my surprise, he was honest about where he went. He said he went down to Storm's Landing to go to his house to get his stuff. But the problem was, when he did that, Storm's Landing was filled with players, and Sikko's house is pretty much in the center. How do I know this? Well, a few hundred days ago, I was at Spiny's funeral, the teammate that we lost inside the Nether. Watching from a distance, I didn't even know I was there. And that's when I noticed Sikko's house. There's no way he would have been able to enter without getting captured or killed. This is when I found out Sikko wasn't loyal to me. I expected him to be because of what I'd done for him, but that's not how loyalty works. He was loyal to Soccer because he had got him on the server in the first place. Just because I gave him my weapon to keep him alive, it didn't mean anything to him. Sikko, for now, was meant to remain in jail until it was time to deal with him. Sorrow had some bad news, and instead of telling me, he wanted to take me there. So I got in a boat with Sorrow immediately, and we began traveling to the destination. I knew exactly where we were. We were at Jamie's. Jamie's place was completely decimated. Destroyed. See, when Sorrow tried to message Jamie on Discord, Jamie responded with that he can't give any information. Under the rules, he's not allowed. So with this, he's probably captured. And there's only one team we know that's definitely done this. Or one side. And that's the red side. Killing Jacio's team felt good, but this was the price. This was done out of retaliation. Emil knew Jamie was a neutral nation and wasn't involved. So this was to get under our skin and to play mind games. We luckily had bargaining power. We got a spare Thalia's sword and Jacio's god weapon. We could use this to trade for Jamie back. As we were recording this, it was about 1 PM and the war was officially meant to start at 3 PM. That's when a ping could come in at any time saying you're under attack and you have 30 minutes to prepare. So we knew if we were going to do a trade for Jamie, we had to do it now soon. So we decided here, on a neutral island, out in the middle of nowhere, that we would trade for Jamie back here. Meet Emil's team back. We hand him something that he wants, a god weapon or the Thalia's sword, and hopefully we get Jamie. But before we can do that, Sorrow needs to ask one of the admin team to move his ship here. So if anything goes wrong, we always have a place to defend ourselves with. So while Sorrow does that, I decided to head back to the castle we were just at to bring some members down for the trade. Sorrow reached out to Emil, and at first there was no contact. It was like he wasn't interested. But then Emil bit back and asked for the cords and where to meet him. Sorrow said the cords and said we're on a neutral island. And both teams had the same idea. Sorrow informed me that the ship moved here before even any players of Emil's were here. Since the war is so close to beginning, no one trusts anyone. Sorrow and I both agreed that we would try and trade the god weapon that we got from Jacio first to Emil. And if he doesn't take that, we're willing to pay the price of giving him the Thalias and the god weapon. But that's when we noticed that JD Kelly in Emil's crowd is Jamie. He's dead. How do I know this? Because he's wearing the dead skin that you have to put on if you've been revived by Emil. Jamie is gone, and we can't trade for him back now. None of us even noticed that he was dead. No one pressed tab to even see his skin. No one even thought to guess it. This was an utter blow. And it's the price of war. So quick thinking, I wasn't going to hand him over the god weapon or even the Thalia's sword. No way. So I started talking about something that I knew he wouldn't even give us anything for. But I didn't want to let him know that killing Jamie had devastated us. Shocked us. So I informed him that I had a few players on his side in custody. Yeah, that's right, it's now a few players. Because when we locked Sikko up, a few minutes later, a few people tried to break him out. But luckily, IGN Nick and JJQ spotted this and imprisoned those players. After a long-winded trade, Emil didn't want them. And that was fine. And now to get inside Emil's head too, I showed him that I had the god weapon just before leaving. It was now time to get back to the ship and to wait for Emil's team to leave. The war is about to begin, and now we do not want to get caught off guard. It took a while for Emil's team to leave, but we knew they were gone when the ship disappeared. It had been moved back to Emil's castle. We now felt a little bit safe. And now it was time to do something that we didn't really expect to be doing today. And it was time to say goodbye to Jamie. And when our trade was taking place with Emil, Jack has finally graced our screens. And he's providing his replay mod so I can tell his side of the story. And he's currently right now in the Badlands, just outside the Nether portal. And he needs to get himself inside that Nether. Undetected. He can't be spotted. A lot of people are counting on him. And what he's about to do here could change the tide of the war completely. He's just going to have to wait for the right moment to enter. And we wish him the best of luck. Now, back to my side of the story. So we went to the place that was most fitting. Jamie's land. And we said our goodbye. And instead of Emil trying to devastate us, I think this kind of motivated us. It gave us drive. Goodbye, Jamie. You did a lot for this world, and we appreciate that. "3 p.m. had now passed, and we were waiting for Emil's team to make the first move because we weren't in the luxury position of making the first move. We're highly outnumbered, and one wrong move, like we said, means Emil's team gets bigger. Now, remember I said that we had a bit of a problem with people trying to break out Sikko? Knight in Red was one of those players. To get out of this cell, he gave us the information that Emil is planning to attack Gnome's team first, their nation. We already had planned for this, because we had been tactically playing mind games with the enemies. The first ping came in from Emil's side, and it was around about 8 p.m, and the war started at 3. It seemed like both sides were waiting for each other to attack first. But now Emil was making his first move. I'm not gonna lie, guys. We're terribly outnumbered. We know this. If you're looking for a big hero story and stuff, this isn't it. Because this right here, it's real. After we got the ping, we were moving down to the first castle in Gnome's Land, taking the bet that they were going to be attacking here. And we were right, because we had spotted them along the coast. And this was where they were planning to attack. They couldn't change their mind now. They had to stick with this attack plan. This was a castle that was built overnight. It's looking out to Emil's direction. And this is what they were coming to attack. This isn't a fortress that we're planning to hold. Look at it. It's going to be overrun within seconds. But we wanted to try and test the enemies and to try to take out a few if we could. So I ordered everyone into the castle and I began digging the cobblestone on the floor. This was all one big trap. A dangerous area for the enemies to enter. The trap was set and all we could do now is wait. And as the time got closer to the 30-minute mark, Emil started to move in. They had come around to the front, which was one thing we weren't expecting. We expected them to come from the water. But they were perfectly in line with the trapped area. We literally want them just to flood into our base without thinking. Because once they find out about that area, they're not going to go anywhere near it. So I think we're going to get maybe 1 or 2 kills if this goes right. Only if it goes right. Time felt like it was moving so slow, as both sides were just watching and getting ready for the time to hit the 30 minutes. And when it did, arrows were let loose and exchanged from both sides. There were so many arrows. Eventually, it started to cause so much frame rate lag. And we were all struggling to play. But we knew this wasn't going well, because the team were being too passive with their arrows. We wanted them to flood in with force, but they weren't doing that. We were surprised with how Emil was taking it so slow. Usually, tactically, he's aggressive, fast moving. But here, it almost felt like he was being careful. We designed the base to make it look weak. And when the enemies did break in, it was the completely wrong section. And it was over. If we don't leave now, the castle will be flooded. And it will be overrun. We had to abandon. We can't lose any players. The players we lose, Emil's army gets bigger. It's simple. But as we retreated, we did manage to get one kill on Emil's side. And that was all we needed. Emil had now gained that castle. And it was up to him if he's going to capture it. Or leave it. Then, just as we were running away, a second ping came into the Discord. And an attack will be taking place in 30 minutes. This was Emil's campaign. To steamroll over Gnome's nation. There was now one more castle between Gnome's capital. And like I said, rules-wise, Emil has to take out this castle to be able to attack Gnome's capital city. And as we retreat, here's an update on Jack. With all the chaos going down in Gnome's land, he's able to monopolize on this. And he's managed to sneak his way into the Nether undetected. He's done it. And now he can continue his part of the mission. We did say if we're going to win this war, we're going to have to play it smart. And more will come with this, guys, I promise. And more will be revealed. I want you guys to experience it how I experienced it. Not knowing what entirely was going on. Was Jack still alive? Did he make it? Well, he's in there. And now, he needs to continue his part of the mission. But back to us, because the war with Gnome's land is not over yet. And we have one more castle to defend. The castle we were just at was a decoy. It was meant to buy us more time and to hopefully let them fall into a trap. But it didn't work. This castle we're heading to now, it's a proper castle. A place where we can actually defend. But the problem is, we're overwhelmed by numbers. And strategically, this isn't a fight we can win. Not by traditionally holding a castle down anyway. We're going to have to be creative, or I suppose take more risks. I ordered everyone into the castle, put down the gates, and to take positions. Gnome was a really great ally, and I didn't want to make it look like we were ready to just abandon this place if we needed to. I wanted to give it a fight, because Gnome had worked really hard in this land. And also, some players on the team, this was their home. And if we just abandoned it and left it, how can I expect them to defend other people's homes? It just wouldn't work. I decided to show some courage. I knew obviously me being me, a YouTuber, well known on this server anyway, that if I was on the outside of the walls, fighting and defending, outside in the field, maybe I would keep enemies away from the castle, giving them a chance to defend. We had to split up Emil's force, it was the only way. But I needed someone with me, so I called down IGN Nick. He had just lost his land as he lived with Mikey. So I knew if there was anyone aggressive, it would be him. He had a lot of anger to burn. We were waiting inside this house outside the castle, waiting for Emil's army. We had only minutes before the next battle would take place. But as I went out into the field, with nearly the order to pull everyone out of the castle and to head up north to Sorrow's land, Emil and Sucker's army emerged. And here you can just see how outnumbered we really are. I think at first, a lot of Emil's members were very confused about why I was on the outside. But at the same time, it didn't have the response that I wanted. Emil was still laser focused on that castle. And me being here kind of felt useless. I kept getting closer and closer. Just trying to let them know I was here. But the final seconds were now here and the war was about to begin. And Emil was obviously letting them know not to focus on me. He knew what I was up to. He knew that I wanted to split them up. Emil's not that dumb. The trusted leaders and myself had given the team to defend this with all they've got. If this falls, it's Gnome's capital next. They charged on into the base because it was time to fight. And not a single player was focused on me. So I charged in, going for a player that looked like it was AFK, but he came back just in time. I just wanted some to focus on me, to take some stress away from the people in the walls. And it was working. It was really working. My plan was to try and bring a few players back to the house where IGN Nick was hiding. Because IGN Nick had a strength potion. So I told Nick to come out and join me. And to fight on the battlefield. Some members fought outside the castle, while a lot defended from in. A few of our team ran, but that was on my orders. I said if you don't feel comfortable fighting this war, leave and fight another day. Being dead means nothing. And I think Gnome's nation understand that we are outnumbered here. But as we were fighting outside, I got some information on the inside that they were beginning to retreat. Which none of this made sense. They were leaving. Something had distracted them. Something more of interest had made Emil go, do you know what? I'm going to leave this. Even though he nearly had the castle. And he left. And the players inside the castle said he was heading south. Something had got his attention. But I don't know what yet. But the players that were here and we were fighting on the battlefield were trying to escape. But we weren't letting them go that easy. We were fighting them along the riverbed. Desperately trying to get a few kills on them. While they were desperately trying to escape. To regroup with Emil. And whatever just caught their attention. There was obviously bigger things going on their side than us. Just what was it? But these two players we weren't letting go. Me and Nick were on them. And I wanted to let Nick have this instead of ordering him back to the castle. So I went along with Nick to give him help. He needed to get some sort of revenge for what the red team done to his home. I struck down R Springs. And he was dead. And now it was Dragon Smoke. And he had just watched his friend die right in front of him. And he was now on the run. But I was giving Nick this moment. Usually I would just leave him be. But with this, I wanted to support Nick and to chase him down. But we chased him for thousands of blocks. And nothing really came from it. But I was getting into familiar territory. And I knew where this player was heading. All the way to Soccer's Land. All the way to Storm's Landing we chased him. And until he got back to safety. And we couldn't chase no more. As the rules of Storm's Landing and the rules of nations and capital cities gave him the protection he needed. As we left, he said, "Welcome to Storm's Landing, boys." He knew we couldn't go any closer. He taunted us. What? Who had distracted Emil's team enough to leave a fight? What's going on? I think we were all shocked. The fact that this place was standing. The fact that Emil just left. Was it mind games that Emil was playing with us? I don't know. But if this was a trap, or if it was mind games, it was working. And the enemies felt distracted now. Something bigger was going on. And they were occupied with that. So of course, with us being strategic and trying to be crafty, we decided we'd turn the pressure on them. It was time to chase them, and them not chase us. Now, while I wasn't online, something big happened, and really interesting. Herp, the player who stole our soul knife, had accidentally dropped the soul knife into lava. And the only reason we know this is because he broadcast it to everyone that was online on the server, and this spreaded like wildfire throughout our Discord and the server itself. Now, the soul knife is a god weapon, and god weapons can only be destroyed by a specific volcano in the world, and that volcano lies in Forest's land. Accidentally destroying a god weapon has never happened yet. So will the admins give the weapon back, or do the red team now no longer have the soul knife? If so, that means no one has it anymore, and it's gone. Only time will tell. I was heading back up to Sarah's land. I had to be careful though, and I had to take a route that was rather dangerous, that went in between Herb and Emil's land and Grimm's, because Soccer had put a boat in between Storm's Landing and Sorrow's land, so that if we want to attack Storm's Landing, we need to attack the boat first, since the boats act like castles and ground to be conquered. And I wanted to take my odds taking this route because more of Soccer's land were online, and going that way could be dangerous. But it was time now to deal with one of the prisoners, Sikko. Had to do something that would make him useful. But there's nothing I could think about, and there was nothing I could do with him. And it was time to give him back to the enemies as a gesture of goodwill, and to hope that if things do go horribly wrong, that hopefully they'd give some mercy, maybe not to me, but maybe to others in this group. So now, knowing that there was a ship in between Storm's Landing and Sorrow's land, it was close. I could trade him off and give him back there. I could hand him over at the ship, as long as they don't shoot me coming up. But we prepared for that, and I'd made a white shield in hopes that they'd see it. But just to be safe, I got Wolf and JJQ to follow us, just to tag along in case anything breaks out. This was also a great excuse to get close to the ship and to see if we could see anything they were planning. But to be honest, I think it was there as a warning, because if this ship falls, it means Storm's Landing is next. It was smart of Soccer to put it there. As I got closer, I could see that there were people on the ship, and Soccer was on it too. I took my time slowly going up to it, wanting to get spotted and not to surprise them, with them now knowing I'm here and that I don't mean a threat. I pulled up. And this is where I gave Soccer a nod, and he gave a nod back. See, this is the difference between Emil and his team. Soccer, you can feel for. He understands. I can never expect Emil's team to give mercy, but Soccer's team, it's a whole nother ball game. There's a chance, and if there's a chance, it's worth it. And that was the trade. With the enemy team being distracted, it was now time for them to have our little attack. For us to try and gain ground from them. We knew something was happening. No pings came into the Discord. The enemies were rather quiet. If there was ever a time to make a move, it was now. Sure, it was a little bit sooner than we expected. We wanted to play the long-winded game. But the team were motivated, and we're feeling good. If the enemies are trying to play mind games on us, it's not working. Because with them leaving the castle in Gnome's land, it's motivated them to think that our team is stronger. And I need them to think that. Because like I said, we're outnumbered. But our plan is to take over that fortress, because we need all the castles that we can get. The more castles we own, the more chances of fighting we get. Like I said, if we lose every nation here, the war's over. They win. If we manage to survive that long. We needed to throw the enemies off as much as possible. We pinged the enemies, giving them 30 minutes to prepare when we were just ready. And to throw the enemies off completely, Gnome sacrificed his ship and put it between Emil's land and Herp's land. Because maybe they might be thinking we might go for Grimm's city. Or we might go for Herp. It's perfectly in between. This was to try and get their forces to spread out. It's now time to attack. We had 2 squads, one on the ship and the rest here. And everyone thought we were going to attack by sea, because that's the only place you can attack from, right? But instead of leading the attack from the sea, I took them outside our front gates and led them to a secret passage built by a player that I cannot disclose yet, but it's perfectly legal. It's time to bring an army right to the center of Herp's fortress. I split the group up into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Group A went one way with me and Group B took the top of the castle. But when we got here, we could see that they were definitely distracted. The ship was working, and they were laser focused on that. And strategically, the enemies had done something bad. Something really they shouldn't have done. They were on the outside of their walls, and we were already inside. We just now had to kick them off the island. And this was then ours. Even though they had the numbers, we had managed to surprise them, even though they knew the attack was coming. They were retreating, and they were going now to Grimm's land, to his fortress. The ship distraction, the secret tunnel, it worked, and we had taken this castle with no casualties and barely any damage done to this structure. This castle was now ours, and removing anything that symbolizes our enemies. Blue team had now gained an extra castle that gives us a slight advantage. And with this being such a success, it was now time to keep rolling through the enemies and to keep going at them. It was confirmed. There was no mind games going on. Something was happening inside the red team. Something big. Something that was bigger than this war. We pinged the enemy, letting them know another attack is coming. And this time, we're heading to the ship because we're going to use this to attack Grimm's port nation. And this one's personal for Rainbow, because Rainbow, Jack and Forrest waged a great war against Grimm, who used to live in the jungle. And Grimm escaped, Rainbow gained the ground and got his nation, but Grimm escaped with the god weapon for that land and didn't give it. So for Rainbow, attacking Grimm isn't anything new for him. We were on the ship, and this time they knew exactly where we were attacking. And they were all there. And more reinforcements were heading to Grimm's nation now. And the red team were now reinforcing the stronghold at Grimm's. Whatever they were up to, they were now back focused on us. But still, there was no signs of Emil. He wasn't here. The clock hit 30 minutes, and it was time to go. Our plan was to get into the center of their town, not fight them head on. So we were meant to charge right through. They'd tried to block off the port, but they didn't finish the walls exactly. We jumped into the water and charged towards the center of the town. This is hopefully something they wouldn't be expecting. We needed someone on a boat so that we could use it to parkour up. Monty parked it, jumped up, and made our way onto the docks. Let's go, let's go. Lovely stuff, people.
Oh no, I'm getting chased down.
Oh god, I'm lagging.
Oh, I'm getting chased down by a
And we're in. Right, there we go, guys. Don't think there's any stairs here, is there? Nope.
Push each other up.
Lovely stuff, guys. Our strategy? Stay in the center of town. Lucas, in the middle. Stay in the middle of the town right now. Let's fight. And fight. We're in the castle. All we had to do now was kick them out. That's when we lost one of our first members. A strength 2 potion had sliced right through him, and he was killed within seconds. Side Sheet was responsible for this, so I tried to chase him down to get as much revenge as possible. And with all the running he did, I lost him. that I was on another enemy. We were slowly but surely driving the enemies out. And that's where Grim, the leader of this nation, was stuck in cobwebs. And everyone was trained on him. And within seconds he died. This was huge, because the person who owns this base is now dead. And that has to be a boost for morale. And the god weapon that Rainbow rightfully deserves was on Grim. It's now his. It's returned to him. Grim might have survived the jungle, but he didn't survive here. With this, the team got second wind, motivation, and we were driving them out. This was a shock for us, and I believe it was a massive shock for the enemies. There were enemies outside the wall who were staying and fighting, trying to buy as much time for them to get back to Emil's base, because that's right, Emil's base is the closest here. And if we go on to attack more, Emil's castle is next, which we thought was out of sight for a long time. But with enemies being here, we couldn't ping for another attack, because we had to make sure this attack was fully done within the rules. So these players were buying more time. So we ordered everyone on them to take him out as quick as possible, so that we could begin the next attack, giving the enemies little time to prepare. And after a long-winded fight, finally, the last enemy was slain. We ordered everyone back into the castle, and we made sure to clear it and sweep. Make sure no enemies are hiding inside. And to, of course, destroy anything that symbolizes the enemies. This was now ours. This one wasn't as quick as taking Herb's base. But that's good, because we fought for this one. But the next base is going to be Emil's. And it's not going to be easy. We need to prepare. And if we don't go in with a plan, we're going to die with this one. They'll give it everything they've got to defend us. We're going to have to shock them. Mind games will win this. I went to the docks that they barricaded, not allowing any ships to enter. It was time to blow that up and free it, in case we wanted to move any ships in. But I wanted to blow that up because I was waiting for something. Something so important that it would change the tides of war. And I'm sorry, guys. I've been hiding something from you, and I gotta tell you the truth now because I can no longer keep it a secret, and the whole server is about to know. But a few days ago, just before I handed Sikko back over to soccer, I actually slipped off from the group, and I went deep into Sorrow's forest. Sorrow has been hiding a massive secret. After vaulting the soul knife many days ago, Sorrow then went on to show me what he had discovered. At first, when he discovered this land, he thought that there was nothing here, there was no god weapon for it. But he discovered a custom underground build that holds many secrets. And the god weapon for this land is the smithing table itself. This whole time, we have had the smithing table, and the trusted leaders have been keeping it quiet, even amongst our own players. And a few days when I slipped away, I actually went to inspect to see how well the work is going. And I looked in, and Forest, Sorrow, Rainbow, and Midori were working away on the netherite sets. Our goal this whole time has been to get 20 full sets of netherite, all prepared, and when the time is right, bring it out so the enemies don't see it coming. And now we've secured the docks, and Jack, Sorrow, and Mikey are on their way with the full 20 netherite sets to arm this army right here with the protection that we're gonna need to carry us through the rest of this war, because now we're heading towards Emil. And it's finally time to end this. And to take you back a bit more, Jack has been involved in this story a lot. And you remember when Jack was trying to get into the Nether? Yeah, he was fooling our enemies, tricking them and playing mind games. Jack's mission was to infiltrate the Nether, and go to an Easter egg that was underneath Mikey and Sorrow's old castle inside there. This Easter egg was discovered by Mikey and Sorrow's team when they were mining, and it was an Easter egg that was referencing Faction Duck, who was the original murderer on the Murder Island, and it looked like an impressive build, and something that was built by the admins. So Jack destroyed the reference, and changed the text to the smithing table. Then he placed down a fake book that said, "Congrats, you have just found the smithing table, and the rules apply. You must keep the smithing table inside the Nether at all times. It can never leave. You can move it from here, but it has to stay inside the Nether." This was designed for the enemies to find us. After Jack had set up this lovely mind game, he then went back to the Nether portal in full netherite armor that was supplied by Sorrow and Forest, and he wanted to get caught by one of the guards at the Nether portal. He wanted them to chase him, and they did just that. The guards had followed Jack all the way to where he made the fake smithing table location, and it worked. We just didn't expect it to work so well. That's why Emil's team abandoned the fight at Gnome's castle and just suddenly upped and left. They got word that Jack was in full netherite in the Nether, and the smithing table is potentially here. And that's why the enemy team were so distracted, and their army was fragmented and split apart. Some in the Nether, and some at this fight today. I'm sure Emil now is making his way back to the castle, because he knows we're coming for him. But he won't expect the biggest netherite army on the server ever to be knocking on his front door. A sight that I never thought we'd see. A full netherite army charging across this world. And it's on the good side. We kept it a secret because we knew it needed to stay a secret. If Emil knew about this much earlier, this war could be a lot different right now. We blew our way into Emil's. It was now time. This was the mind games we wanted. For the first time, and for hopefully the last time, they're seeing a full army of netherite. They had the full castle in lockdown mode with the drawbridge open. Only a few of us had pearls, but not enough to get across. We'd have to find another way in. And TNT would help us do that. Because with the same strategy again, we wanted to attack from the inside out. Not head on. We blew straight into the throne room. We wanted to get nice and close. We realized the bow spam, it doesn't kill anyone. But what does is swords and axes. Barry was here fighting, and we knew Barry would at least go down with his ship. But Emil was nowhere to be seen. Of course. How could I not? I destroyed Emil's throne. We were getting reports all over that Emil's team were running, and we really didn't understand this. The red team were leaving the castle, abandoning ship. Christ, even the zombies were leaving. And they're meant to just fight and do nothing. They're dead anyway. But I knew one thing. Barry was done here. And if anything, maybe a falling out had happened between Emil and Barry. Because Barry wasn't running. And he had a whole entire team on him. So I ordered everyone out, except the leaders, to stay here. And to take on Barry. And to end his journey. In his amazing build that he created. His helmet popped. And soon after, he dropped to the floor dead. It was over for him. And by the seams of it, it seems like it's nearly over for Emil. That's the problem. No one on Emil's team is actually loyal. The drawbridge was closed. And we could head on out. And all you could see was Emil's team running for the shore, trying to escape, with Emil nowhere to be seen. Jack, being Jack, wanted to continue the chase, hunting down Emil's team. I have no control over Jack, and no one does. So I let him go. But I did tell him to take IGN Nick with him. He's been by my side since the start, and he'll fight with you. He's loyal. So they went off, and Mikey went with them too. We had to clear this castle out. Make sure no one was hiding here. The castle was cleared, and no one was hiding. They had left. They had abandoned the fortress. None of us could believe it. They had one more castle that we knew of, and that was the Nether portal. That was the last castle they owned, and where they were most likely heading. And we knew they were because Jack was following a crowd of them there. We pinged for the final attack for the red team army, and still Soccer, with all this, was nowhere to be seen. He had not came to Emil's aid. And as we were leaving Emil's base, we could see a group of Emil's army. They were standing there like they were ready for a last stand, and we thought we would be battling them here. But they saw us, and they jumped into boats. These zombies were almost nearly breaking the rules. That's how scared they were of us. The zombies have nothing to live for. They're dead players. The whole point of them is to be here and just to make the world feel alive. And when battles come, there'll always be a nation that has a lot of players, and that'll be the evil side. And these guys are running. They had abandoned Emil, which wasn't really allowed to happen, like I said. It's not in the rules. They have to stay loyal to him. But in the moment, they've just lost that. But we were charging down to the south because things were escalating quickly. And Jack had warned us that Emil and a few of his members were down at the docks near Jacio's land. They were heading towards the Nether portal, and Jack engaged in the fight. But sadly, Jack underestimated the power of his Strength 2 potion, especially in a trusted player's hands. The gear they have is so powerful. Emil drank a Strength 2, and with that... No! Got never right. We need to get that guy. We need to get that guy. Oh, it's Emil. It's Emil. It's Emil.
You didn't pick up. You didn't pick
This
all
is
of
so
it.
good
Hold up.
content.
Sorry.
Jack, are you there? Jack's not even speaking. Did he lag out or something? Jack had died. And the worst thing was, we couldn't even honor him for a second. We had to chase Emil, and we had to finish the mission. And finally kill him. No castle will give him protection. No rules will keep him alive. He'll have no safety. We sweep through Jacio's nation, making sure there was no enemies hiding. We wanted them to all be in one place when we attack. And finally, here it is. Emil was in his castle with the members that were loyal to him, which wasn't very many. And as we peeked over the edge to look down on Emil, he was firing arrows, taking shots at us, and if anything, I felt sorry for him. The arrows he were firing were pathetic, and the army he had now wasn't even an army. All the talk and how he treated players has obviously backfired on him, and that's when Soccer's team emerged. But as you can see, they're not on Emil's side, but they're also not on our side either. You see, when we handed over Sikko, we handed him over, and we told Sikko to tell him the deal. And the deal was that if we win this war, Soccer can have all of Emil's nation, can even have Sorrow's nation, where the smithing table is held, and must stay, as long as when this war is won, you leave our nations alone forever, and you stick to the treaty. And I said, I know you're part of this deal if you don't show up for any of the attacks we're about to do on Emil's nation. And that's why Soccer was not there. Emil, it's over for you now. You have no place to run. Once this castle is taken out, we can chase you down. We charged, wasting no time to finish this. And there was one last and final plot to the story. And I'm sorry I kept this a secret, but I thought it would be better storytelling to not let you know. To keep you on the edge of your seat. But since the bounty hunter days of when I was hunting down Wilboat, we have been planning to get someone on the inside of Emil's team to destroy them within. And when we captured Wilboat, he was meant to be our key to getting on the inside of Emil. Not through Wilboat himself, but we knew Wilboat, we planned for it, would escape, and one of Gnome's members would go rogue. And that member was Herp. Yeah, you heard me correctly. That's the guy who stole our soul knife. See, Herp was on our side this whole time, and he went into the Nether expedition with Wilboat, knowing that Wilboat will definitely try and gain some power inside there. And instead of Herp resisting Wilboat's power, he actually went along with it and pretended to be on Wilboat's side. The plan was to keep Wilboat alive, so that then Wilboat would lead Herp to Emil. But we had one problem. Wilboat actually died in the Nether. I wasn't trying to kill him, but he accidentally burnt to death. And that put a spanner in our work, but still Herp had managed to infiltrate his way into Emil's team by taking over one of Gnome's castles. And then the icing on the cake was when Sorrow broke into his own vault, took the soul knife, and handed it over to Herp, and made it look like there had been a break-in, that Herp had broken into our vault. This sold Emil straight away, and he thought Herp was on his side. And during this whole season, Herp had been feeding us ancient debris, and he's also the player that let Jack into the Nether. And once Jack was done his mission and it came time for him to escape the Nether, Herp came to his aid and dropped him 2 invisible potions and handed him over the soul knife. This is when Herp pretended to burn the soul knife, but actually Jack was leaving the Nether invisible with the soul knife in his inventory, safe and sound. And that's how we're closing the portal right now. This has been one big long-winded plan, and problems had happened, but we adapted and overcame. Herp has been helping us all this time. He even made the secret tunnel into his own base. And now you know. We beat our enemies with pure strategy, and we played the admins at their own game. And now, Emil is still alive, but the portal is closed. We're gonna make sure it never opens again. Emil can rule the Underworld, but he can't have the Overworld. This means the server has no source of dead players coming back to life, and no way of undead armies waging war against the players who have survived the past wars. But this story, this video is not over yet, and there's a few final things we need to do. We need to travel to Jack's home and say goodbye to our friend. And well, the rest, it's history. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you very much for watching.